The Commission of Inquiry into the 2023 Usindiso building fire in Marshalltown has found that the City of Johannesburg and the Johannesburg Property Company are partly responsible for the tragedy. The Commission has recommended that appropriate action be taken against some of the key officials in the city. Over 70 people, as we know, were killed. Many still remain homeless in the aftermath of that fire. Joining us this afternoon is Mametlwe Sebei. He's from the Marshalltown Fire Justice Campaign. Mametlwe, it's great to have you with us on the program. Thanks for coming on. This report by the inquiry released just yesterday, and it does say a lot of the things, a lot of the recommendations made by Justice Sisi Kampepe are the things that the Marshalltown Fire Justice Campaign have been trying to get across as well.
Well, we most certainly welcome the report. We do think that the main findings of the report does vindicate our campaign and its position from the onset. And that position was that the city, its officials and departments are culpable and responsible for that tragedy, not the residents of that building. Mm-hmm. We also welcome the call for accountability. We do think that disciplinary measures need to be taken as a recommendation of the Commission against those officials and those departments that were responsible for a criminal neglect, as we argue it is, but also for violation of their own bylaws by allowing a building and the conditions in that building which are simply not safe, a condition that were always, if you like, a lake of fuel waiting for any trigger to exploit at any given point in time. 76 lives down the line, many injuries, many loss of property. We do think that there must be accountability for this. And for that, we do welcome this report.
Yeah, I suppose the thing that hurts the most is that as far back as 2018, the alarm bells were raised about this building.
Yes, and what is very tragic is that, Michelle, it's not just this building. And the fact that we even have some people reoccupying this building speak to the disparate conditions of housing in the inner city. There is estimated 224 similar buildings that are completely deliberated, buildings that are inflammable at any, as I've said, slight trigger and all those things and so on. And so that is a situation that the city has not addressed, even post this tragedy. And the question that we have got to ask as a people in this country is how many people, how many lives of poor Black working class people should be lost for us to start saying this situation is unacceptable. There is a need, as we have argued as a Marshalltown Fire Justice Campaign, there is a need for emergency program to refurbish all the 224 similar buildings in the inner city of Johannesburg, but also ultimately address as a matter of urgency the housing backlog across the whole of the city. 500,000 strong housing backlog need to be addressed, because as much as me and you are speaking about the tragedy at Usindiso, and we have also covered some other smaller tragedies in the inner city of Johannesburg, this is a permanent reality in many informal settlements outside of the inner city and in the city of Johannesburg, but across the whole of the country. And I think that for me is a call for action. And I think we need to send a strong message. And that's the reason that we are also differing, or rather disappointed, by the report to the extent that it does not recommend a criminal prosecution for what we consider to be a criminal abdication and neglect on the part of the city.
So the inquiry report also talks about appropriate action being taken against a number of officials. One of them is the chief executive of the Johannesburg Property Company, the MMC for Human Settlements, and the MMC for Public Safety in Johannesburg as well. So when we're talking about appropriate action, Mametlwe, what would it look like for you?
Very minimal, Michelle. It has to mean, one, those people you have listed, they have to go. It cannot be that so many people die. I would have argued the same, even if it's just 2-3 people. In any other city, in any other democracy, and that's what we'd expect, that people in those lines of responsibilities, at the very minimum, they have to go. They've got to be taken also to disciplinary process in case they do not resign. But we'll argue as well that those are people who are criminally liable because this situation did not happen out of the blue, right? We and our organizations that make up this campaign, including, Inner City Resource Center, Inner City Resident Federation, SERI, which is Socio-Economic Rights Institute, that have been shining a light on the plight of the city's poor, the housing conditions in many of these buildings. They have again and again highlighted the dangers, the hazards of these buildings. And not only have they not been engaged by the city, if anything, they've been demonized, they've been scapegoated. And I think you have had many occasions where, in effect, these people that are actually saying, this is a dangerous situation in which we are putting our people. They have been demonized and they have been, said to be the people responsible for this situation. Yeah. And we think this is unacceptable and there must be accountability for it on the part of these officials.
In his State of the City address just last week, the Johannesburg Mayor, Kabelo Gwamanda, said that in memory of the victims of the Usindiso fire, the city would be refurbishing essentially some of the hijacked buildings, at least those owned by the City of Johannesburg. What's your take on that, Mametlwe?
We would agree to that, but what does that really mean coming from the mayor? I mean, the mayor previously said, they need to double the rate at which they're building houses, which in 2022 were 2,500. And if his most wishful thinking is to be a government policy, it means they'll be building 5,000 housing units a year. And let's understand what that means. The city of Johannesburg is facing, Michelle, with a backlog of 500,000 housing units. Even in the most wishful scenario of the mayor, that would mean it would take us 100 years just to overcome the current backlog. On the basis of the rate at which they are building houses, it would take us 200 years. Now, this is a city that is increasing the population at the rate of 130 to 150,000 a year. Over a period of 10 years, it can be estimated at 1.5 million. Now, when you count all of that, it tells you that this city has not only a plan, but not even an ambition to address a catastrophic housing situation in the city. What we do need is a mass public housing program that will build a house on the scale of hundreds of thousands across the city of Johannesburg to overcome the crisis, not only of deliberation within the city, the unsafe housing conditions in many of these buildings, but many informal settlements across the city. We also need a similar plan across the entire country because this crisis is not confined to Johannesburg. It's a reality in all the major urban settlements where, because of underdevelopment, lack of jobs, lack of services, but also just the levels of horrific poverty in rural South Africa, many of these cities are growing at a pace that is not being matched by provision of services, including construction of housing. We need a program that can be able to tackle that at the same time as creating many hundreds of thousands of jobs that we need desperately to also fight the levels of unemployment and poverty.
Yeah, certainly. And it's going to be quite a big, I imagine, electioneering tool, some of the issues that you've raised. We obviously don't forget that we're in an election year. We are just weeks away now from what is said to be the most important election in our country's history since 1994. But what a shame, what an absolute shame that the kinds of lessons we've learned through the Usindiso fire has had to come at the cost of the lives of more than 70 people. Mametlwe, Sebei, let me thank you for your time this afternoon. He's with the Marshalltown Fire Justice Campaign.